Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on The Merchant of Venice and we get to hear from Shylock again today in Act 1, Scene 3. Shylock is a Jewish man who lives in Venice, and he lends out money and he charges interest on it, which, thanks to one of the lovely comments that I got on yesterday's video, we learned was actually potentially illegal at the time for people to charge interest. But he has managed to figure a way around it, and we're going to learn some of his justification in today's speech. But anyway, the fact that he charges interest when he lends out money is a big part of the reason why Antonio hates him. So Antonio has spent the last however long bad-mouthing Shylock in front of all of the other merchants in Venice. So Shylock has a really bad reputation in large part because of Antonio saying these things, and then also the fact that he charges interest. So the two of them hate each other, like really hate each other. And Antonio is asking for 3,000 ducats for a period of, like, to be paid back within 3 months so that he can then lend it to Bassanio, who will take that money and go try to woo Portia so then he can marry this rich woman, and then he'll have enough money to pay all of these various debts back. And Shylock is thinking, you know, Antonio, all of his ships are out in various places right now, so this could potentially be a good opportunity for Shylock to do some undoing, as it were, of Antonio. So we started out Act 1, Scene 3, with Bassanio asking Shylock for the money, saying that Antonio would be the bondsman for it. And Shylock's, you know, I think I'll do it, but I want to talk to Antonio first. And Antonio came in, and yesterday in the monologue we find out why the two of them hate each other. And as they start to talk, you can sort of tell that Shylock is maybe toying with Antonio a little bit. He's like, so how much money did you want, and how long did you want it for? Let me see, what should the rate on that be, and blah 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 blah. And Antonio starts getting really impatient, and Shylock brings up the story of Jacob and Laban from the Bible, which we'll hear more and we'll talk about more after I've done the monologue, just in case you didn't know the story, because I didn't know the story until I looked it up. And Antonio was like, you know, why are you bringing that up? What, did Jacob charge interest on that? And Shylock says, no, not take interest, not as you would say, directly interest. Mark what Jacob did. When Laban and himself were compromised that all the eanlings which were streaked and pied should fall as Jacob's heir, the ewes, being rank in end of autumn, turned to the rams. And when the work of generation was between these woolly breeders in the act, the skillful shepherd piled me certain wands, and in the doing of the deed of kind, he stuck them up before the fulsome ewes, who then, conceiving, did in eaning time fall party-colored lambs, and those were Jacob's. This was a way to thrive, and he was blessed, and thrift is a blessing if men steal it not. So he's recounting a story from the Bible, which, if you don't know it, is a story of Jacob, who was working for his uncle Laban, and Jacob wanted to, like, build his own flock and go elsewhere, but Laban didn't really want to let him go. So they made a deal that any lambs that were born who had spots or were striped or speckled, whatever, would become Jacob's, whereas any lambs that were solid black or solid white would remain Laban's flock. And Laban even went so far as to go through his existing flock and take all of the sheep that had speckled coats or striped coats, all that sort of thing, and give them to his other kids, because I guess they knew a smattering maybe about genetics back then, thinking, you know, the speckled sheep are going to have speckled babies, so if we give them somewhere else. Laban was trying to make it so that Jacob would not get a big enough flock to be able to leave. But Jacob went and peeled the bark off of some trees, off of like an almond tree and maybe a pine tree and a chestnut tree, stuff like that, because maybe he knew something about genetics or hormones or whatever. And he put this bark in the water troughs where the ewes were drinking, knowing that the rams would sort of come up behind the ewes while they were drinking and mate with them. And somehow by doing this, he managed to encourage more speckled and striped lambs to be born, and Jacob was able to build up a big enough flock that he was able to leave. Now, of course, biblical scholars say that this was God's intervention because he wanted to be on Jacob's side and help him and all that sort of thing. But what Shylock is saying here is that Jacob didn't actually do anything wrong. He promised that he would take care of the flock, and it was agreed that he would get all of the striped ones. He just made it so that there were more striped ones and speckled ones, so that he would then be able to go on and do what he was saying. So this is the parallel that Shylock is drawing between what he's doing now in quote-unquote charging interest on the loans that he sends out, and Jacob just encouraging more wealth to come his way by whatever means he's able to do it. Of course, Antonio doesn't like this at all and starts pushing back on him, and he's like, that's still, it's not cool that you're doing this, and what do you take me for, and all that sort of a thing. And we're going to get to find out tomorrow what exactly Shylock takes him for, because he's got another long monologue that digs a little bit deeper into their relationship. I don't think we've quite made it to how much interest Shylock is going to charge, but if you've heard anything about this play before, then you probably already know what the payment is going to be. It's a little gruesome, but we'll get there eventually. Tomorrow we got to find out a little bit more about how these two have been interacting with each other over the years. So I will see you then for that.